explore it a bit more. Standing here on a seepline, and the seepline, as many of you will know, is an ecotone sort of thing. In other words, a meeting place of two vegetation types. In this case, the crest up to the top, where the marulas and the broad-leafed combretums live, and then down to the eastern side here, we go into the thicker stuff around the drainage lines. A couple of acacias, some different combretum species, and of course these grasses on the seeplines that the waterbuck like to eat. And the reason I mention the waterbuck is that the air is filled, well, touched, shall we say, with the scent of waterbuck. They've definitely been through here and left their musky scent that smells like a sort of sweet, sweaty horse. Then we found this, and it looks like a wild mint, as Eggsy pointed out to me, and it smells mintish, not very minty, but what it does form, and they're just starting to form here, are very delicious berries. And this is one of my favorite fruits to eat out here. I mean, you'd have to collect a hectare of them to get sort of half a teaspoon, but they are delicious, and they're called Lantana rugosa, and I don't remember, a brandyberry. It's called a brandyberry, and they are delicious. Those green berries that you can see in there will eventually become purple when they're ripe, and they're sweet and very delicious. I think it's called the brandyberry, Lantana rugosa, and very closely related to Lantana, that is an invasive species. There we go. And the invasive species, very beautiful. It has very similarly shaped flowers, but they're white and red and yellow and pink, as opposed to uniform purple. Smells of mint, delicious. Come on in. Now, Karula's tracks, the last one we saw was the one that we saw with you. Sorry, John, I'm going to have to ask you a question again. I missed it. What plants can be harmful to humans to eat? John, what plants can be harmful to eat for human beings? It's not a huge amount that's poisonous out here. The sesame are not very good. The seeds are pretty bad. The wild foxglove is another one, the cardioglycoside that will create heart palpitations and possibly death. Strychnos madagascarensis. You know, strychnos is an invasive species around here, and whenever I talk about it, I can never find it. But it has a fruit that carries strychnine in the seeds, not very much. But John, there are not a huge number of very toxic plants out here. Most of them are actually fine. I'm trying to think of one that is particularly bad. The obvious one, which we talk about quite a lot, is tambuti, which grows down on the rivers, and it's got a very white milky latex, and that white milky latex is extremely toxic. That's probably the most toxic plant out here, and the one that would cause the most in the way of death were you to ingest it. But otherwise, not a huge number. There are a few... Ooh, shame. Eggsy got himself caught up there. There are a few roots and tubers that are particularly toxic to human beings, but nothing that you really have to watch out for. Tambuti is the main one. There are fruits here that you wouldn't eat, certainly, that would give you a nasty stomachache. Would they kill you? Probably not. Have you got him? That's amazing. There's a crested franklin through there. But, you know, I say that, John, you don't come out here and put things in your mouth unless you know exactly what they are. Now, the tracks of Karula, they were coming this way still. It's, like I say, almost impossible to track here. We're not too far from a road and another drainage line through here. So the trackers are now walking along there, seeing if they can't find further evidence. We need to find this leopard because we need her to sort of complete our story of her reuniting with her cubs and then catching up, or catching them a meal, and that's really what we want to find her doing today, feeding her little youngsters. Now, Evia has got something that can sometimes be an indicator of death. Let's go and find out if, in this case, it is a harbinger of death.
So as James is saying, we've found something that indicates death. I don't think they're indicating death at this stage though. Some beautiful white-backed vultures sitting in a dead tree. Yeah, with the cloud cover this morning, I don't think it's hot enough for them to fly around yet. So they just probably slept here last night. I would have expected a lot more of them if there was any death around. So a happier sight to see them this morning. Oh, sorry. Happy for us, but maybe not as happy for them, because they would not mind a meal. But yeah, I think for the moment they're just relaxing, waiting for it to heat up a bit so they can catch their thermals. I think let's carry on, let's explore this area of Chitwa a bit more. Thuraya in New Jersey. You would like to know if there are any other birds that can attack humans on safari. Well, there's different versions of attack. If you look at those lapwings, the blacksmith lapwings and the crowned lapwings that we sometimes see, if you're walking and you're close to their eggs or their nest on the ground, they might bomb you, they might fly down and try and chase you off. So that's a form of attack. I don't think they'll actually end up hurting you, but yeah, they'll try and scare you to the extent that you move away from the area. But yeah, I don't think there's really any birds that will attack us to try and feed on us. We might get, if you had to pass away out in the bush and no one finds you, yeah, then you might have vultures feeding on you. But other than that, no, I don't think there's much from the bird side that will really catch us. Although maybe an infant or something, a big martial eagle might take a chance if there's no adults around. But other than that, no, I don't think there's anything that's going to do too much damage on the bird side. Well, let's move on. Let's see what else we can find. One other possible bird that will give you a nasty injury is maybe an ostrich. If you try and steal the female's eggs, she's got a massive foot and a huge claw on it, and if that's going to kick you, it's going to hurt as well. I don't know if you remember, yesterday I was speaking about log lions. Now there's a little burnt stump. You can imagine if that area is overgrown with tall grass and you just see a bit of that dark and that shape, and you're driving quite fast, not paying all the attention in the world, but you're looking around trying to find some cats. That is one of those log lions. That's going to definitely catch your attention. There's a capped turtle dove. You see how his neck is blown up, maybe trying to impress a female. Aaron in New Zealand. You're asking what is the rarest species of dove we can see in this area. I think the one that I've seen the least of is a Namakwa. Ooh, now I need to think. Namakwa dove. Let me try and quickly find a picture of one to show you what it looks like. That's the one I've seen the least. Further north in the Kruger Park, I know you get down here we get the emerald spotted wood dove. there's a blue spotted wood dove as well, I think. Yeah, blue spotted wood dove. Let's show that one first. Here's the distribution. How's that, Davy? Very thin stripe coming into the northern parts of the Kruger National Park. Sorry for all the glare on my phone. And then let me try and find a picture. It looks very similar to the emerald spotted, but instead of having the green spots on the wing, it's got a blue spot. And then let me go to the Namakwa dove. I haven't seen one in a long time. Quite a pretty dove. Very long tail. Nice dark face as well. Face and chest. So yeah, for me these are the rarest ones that yeah, I've never seen a blue spotted wood dove, but the Namakwa dove I've seen. Alrighty. Well, let's keep moving. Just get back onto that map. Some more vultures, also just relaxing in a tree. So, Michael, you're wondering why vultures mostly roost in dead trees, or, well, here they're not in a dead tree, it's just dead branches. I think my take on it is that there's a lot less things moving around in dead trees versus alive trees. So trees that are still alive, there might be a lot more movement in those ones. I think dead trees give a bit more security and there's a lot less things that can bother them. And it's a lot easier to roost without having to try and find a place to put your feet. It's just, there is only place for their feet to go. But yeah, that's just my take on it. I know a tracker that I've worked with for a long time, he always said when you see vultures in a dead tree, it tells you that there's no food around. When they're in a live tree, there is a very good chance that there's going to be a kill nearby. So that's just a bit of folklore, I think. I've seen it being true and I've seen it not being true, so it's just a personal observation or a bit of folklore. But yeah, quite interesting, those little folklore stories and little beliefs of the local cultures. On that note, let's keep going. Let's go straight for the moment. Let's keep a good lookout on these termite mounds. Maybe you see some dwarf mongoose out and about. I wonder if this is a favored area for these vultures to be hanging out or roosting at night. Far off in the distance there's some more vultures here and there sitting around. I think we're gonna. There's a young male Nyala. Let's have a quick look at him. A nice big male as well. Oh, please don't down me, car. That's a nice size comparison, and also how much lighter that young male is versus the older male. That young male somewhere in between, being the darkness of the male and still the lighter color of the Nyala females. As this guy's disappearing off into the bush, I'm going to send you over to Jamie and go see what she's up to and see if she's had any luck with those leopards.
From young male Nyala with FW to young male Nyala watching us from the opposite side of a riverbed. This is sort of the last position where we believe that Karula's tracks are heading to, and they seem perfectly relaxed, so they haven't seen any sign of our female leopard wandering through here. I know that Herbie and James are still in the block. Now, when we talk about a block, what we're referring to is basically the bushveld between the roads. So obviously there's a network of roads that run through the reserve, and then in between those roads are the blocks of bush, and that's where, of course, the leopards disappear into. So we suspect, we've checked this road, 3 of us have all checked this road about 3 times, and there's no sign of her coming out here. So there's a possibility she's crossed north into the boundary, or into the property that is north of our boundary. So we can't drive there. She can go wherever she wants. There's no fences, but unfortunately we can't drive there. The ground is very, very hard. It would be very difficult to see their tracks. But there's also a possibility she's still in here. So we're going to check the surrounding area, make sure she hasn't pulled a sneaky move on us, and leave Herbert to do his magic in this block over here. Fingers crossed, everybody. Hopefully the Queen of Djuma will make an appearance before the end of the sunrise safari. But if she doesn't, I'm pretty chuffed with that displaying red-crested korhaan. I'm very glad we finally managed to catch that on camera. I figured out where the weird noise was coming from as well. Once upon a time, the vehicle that I'm driving was a roadworthy vehicle. It was Graham's vehicle, Graham's Land Rover. Once upon a time, she would have had a roof and a windscreen, and as a result, she would also have had windscreen wipers. And it turns out that whilst she no longer has a windscreen nor windscreen wipers, she does still have the mechanism for windscreen wipers. Hence the noise. So that is the vehicle's windscreen wipers that were on, and that's why she's been making such a strange sound. Sometimes it's not a disaster. Sometimes it's not something wrong. Sometimes the simplest solutions are the easiest. Connor, has that been bugging you for a while now? I know Connor's in final control. It has been, apparently, because Connor, of course, has been using this vehicle to fly the drone. There we go. The windscreen wipers. The simple solution. Otherwise, things are quite hidden. I thought it was going to be a bright, beautiful, and sunny morning. I've proved to be incorrect. There is plenty of cloud cover, and all of the animals seem to be in hiding. Well, I don't blame them if they're antelope, and Karula's been stalking through here. It's enough to set any antelope's teeth on edge. Okay. Let's try. Let's just try. Let us see if perhaps she hasn't gone to She hasn't given us the slip and we've missed her tracks. Perhaps she skipped over the road. Perhaps she used one of those wormholes that I believe she has. What do you call them? Portholes. From one place to another. Or else her underground tunnels. I'm quite convinced that Karula has those as well. Or she has cardboard hippo feet cutouts that she just ties onto her feet and then stomps along. That'll keep them all confused. I'm joking, of course, but leopards can be notoriously tricky to track. Now, speaking of tracks, one of the best ways to see them is on foot. Let's go and see what James has found for you.
Now, we don't have a very fresh track here. It's not fresh at all, in fact, but it is the track of a male lion. And remember, I was trying to show you tracks a little bit earlier and failing really rather dismally. This is a male lion, and it's one of the Birmingham boys. There's my hand next to it, and you can see it's not quite the same size. I'll move my hand on top of it. It's almost. Now, I remember the old Matimba males who seem to have been chased off yet again. We can get into that a little bit later, but I remember the Matimba males who were very big male lions. They had tracks the size of my hand, so I'd do that, and that would be the same size as their tracks. These Birmingham boys are not quite as big, but they are fearsome because they seem to be very full of aggression. Anyway, that's the story there. We've come now to, I'm not sure how well you know this reserve. Many of you know it probably better than I do. But just down over there is the Mlwamati drainage as it crosses the Buffelshoek cut line. And we're on the firebreak side of the Buffelshoek cut line, and Buffelshoek is just off to that side over there, and that of course is due north. We haven't found any more tracks of Karula moving, but as Jamie says, it's not quite underground tunnels. This ground is hard. She doesn't weigh very much, nor do her cubs, so very difficult to find them. Herbert is in here somewhere, trying to see if he can't see whether she's come through the drainage line, and I'm really sad. We lost signal completely as we came into the drainage, into the Mlwamati, and came up to the north, because it's a fairyland in there. It really is quite stunning. Eggsy and I were both walking through these huge tambuti trees, this grove, interspersed with these little tunnels and little paths where the game goes walking in there. And Eggsy said to me, if I was an animal, this is where I would live. And I had to agree with him. It was like a total fairyland, just ups and downs with clearly where ancient rivers used to flow, and these huge towering pillars, a real cathedral, if you like, of the wild. I'd love to say that was my term. It isn't. It belongs to a chap called Boyd Varty. Cathedral of the Wild, which is what that was. Then we found Plectranthus. Now, Plectranthus is one of the very first flowers I ever learnt, mainly because I know my mother plants some form of Plectranthus in her garden. And that's what that is. It is called a Plectranthus. I'm not sure which one. There are a number of different Plectranthus species that you can get out here. Should we count how many times I can say Plectranthus in one segment, Eggsy? Eggsy was in hysterics the other day because after we had a discussion about niches, and the question from James was, do I think that human beings have evolved beyond their niche? And I'm not going to go into that discussion again. But during the course of that discussion, which was about, 2 minutes long, I said the word niche 17 times. Oh, thank you, Eggsy. You've now spotted something of great fascination. What do you think it belonged to?
Ostrich.
An ostrich. Would you like to try again, or are you going to stick with ostrich? Kingfisher?
Or lilac-breasted roller.
Or lilac-breasted roller. I'm going to go with lilac-breasted roller on that one. But kingfisher's not a bad guess. Excuse me. I thought I heard Herbert whistling at us. Anyway, what I think is so fascinating, of course, and I keep saying this, is that blue isn't blue. It's not a pigment. It's just a very clever trick of light, played by a very clever arrangement of melanin and keratin crystals interspersed with sort of air pockets. Isn't that amazing? And you can see there's just something not quite right about it as far as blue goes. Marvellous. Oh, that really is amazing. And the closer you look, the more you break it up, the less blue it seems. Am I talking the truth here? I'm not, you know. I'm so sorry. There is a blue pigment in this. We do get blue pigments. I think, do we? I've become confused, but I think there's a little bit of blue pigment. There's no green pigment, and that dark stuff there is definitely not pigment. That's the keratin. All right. I think this was a lilac-breasted roller, but I quite like Eggsy's guess of a kingfisher. Right, we're going to head in here and see if we can find Herbert. Hopefully he's found Karula. While we do that, not Herbert, Effia is at Chitwa Dam with the Chitwa pod.
I think it's the youngsters. Ah, there we go, having a good go at one another. One of the most horrifying sounds in the bush is when two hippos are fighting and fighting properly. The noise carries for kilometers. There's this bellowing scream. I can't even imitate it. Yeah. But you get a big fright when you hear that. There we go. Just look at those bottom teeth, the canines on the bottom jaw, how long they are. They can, in a big male, they can grow maybe up to 30 centimeters. Imagine that biting into you. Well, I've heard people say a hippo can bite a crocodile in half. So, yeah. Serious tools that they have to protect themselves. There's a fish eagle sitting just to the left of those hippo on that dead tree. A bit more to the left. There we go. Beautiful, beautiful fish eagle. Hopefully it calls. It'll be great to hear the call. It's buzzing around here this morning. Dwarfy, we've got a bird that we don't see too often. Michael, you are asking if the crocodile could be a danger to all these geese and birds in the area. I think there is a possibility of that. I think there's definitely a possibility of a croc grabbing one. And if you look at the screen now, you see that little black bird moving around. It's called a black crake. But about maybe a meter and a half away from that, there is a little crocodile there. The croc's moving away, just disappearing into the water. That bird's seen it. You can see the way it's reacting. It looks like it's calling. It's a bit far for us to hear it, but yeah, definitely knows the crocodile is there. I just want to quickly have a look on my bird app. There's some Pratten calls that I just saw quickly. They're somewhere around those Egyptian geese and the hippos we saw first. We'll go back. I just want to confirm it and then we'll go back. Excuse me. Collared Pratten call. Can we try and have a look? So in between, just in front of the main group of Egyptian geese, there's a bunch of smallish birds, maybe a bit to the right. There we go, that flock there. They look like collared Botanicals. It's a bit far for me to say 100%, but the way they're sitting, everything is giving me that impression. Look at those hippo going at each other again. So yeah, quite nice to see. This is only the second time I've seen Botanicals. The first time it was on a backpack trail on the Letaba River in the Kruger National Park. So special. Hi Moon, you're asking if hippos were ever hunted for their ivory. No, they haven't been hunted for their ivory. My understanding of it is it doesn't have the same consistency as elephant tusks. So it is some form of ivory, but it's not the ivory that people really use for the ornaments and stuff that they make out of elephant tusks. I don't know too much about the specific details of how it differs and all that, but that is my understanding of the whole situation. Those hippos are really having a good go at one another. We're going to spend some more time at the dam here, try and get a nicer view of the crocodile, see what other life forms are all around here. In the meantime, let's head over to Jamie, who's got a very tiny predator.
The tiniest of all of our predators out here, at least in terms of mammals, and in the order Carnivora. And I think that Rion's hit upon the perfect name for them, the micro mongoose. Now, somebody, when they were naming them, definitely missed out on an opportunity there. They are, in fact, a dwarf mongoose, and this one's found something that is very interesting. What are you doing? Are you anal pasting on the grass? Yes. So our dwarf mongoose have just woken up and just started emerging from their burrows. It's now warm enough for them to start scurrying about, having a little dig. What are you looking for? They're fierce little carnivores that will go after things like scorpions and insects. This one's scent marking, using the preorbital glands, the glands around the cheeks and the eyes, and of course the famous gland that they are famous for, which sits underneath their tail and is known as the anal gland. And that is what connects all of our Herpestidae members, so that's the mongoose family, the viverrid members, things like our genets and our mustelids. So things like honey badgers, all the common evolutionary ancestor way, way back in time. Hello, little ones. Emboldened by my success with the Korhan, I'm trying to communicate with them. Doesn't seem to be having a great effect. Now, typically when mongoose come out for the day, they're going to spend the rest of the day foraging, but before they do that, they've got to do some very important business, which involves marking and protecting their little burrow. Oh, doesn't want that ant. I thought I was going to try and grab it. They are fiercely territorial, so they've got territories of around about 10 hectares, which is actually quite big. It depends, of course, on where you are. But 10 hectares, about 10 football fields worth. There we go, there's one marking that same blade of grass. Now they're all coming to sniff. Wait, let's see if this one marks as well. Now they're marking each other. Yay, family! You can all take your turn, I promise you. If you wait patiently, you can all have a chance to anal paste on that blade of grass. There we go, one's had its turn. And each other, because bonds are so strong, stopping to have a quick scratch. because just like all creatures out here, they will be covered in ticks and parasites. Oh, the excitement. This is our house, and nobody else can come here. And if they were to encounter a rival group of dwarf mongoose, they would fight ferociously. However, like the banded mongoose, there is a little secret shenanigan that goes on when two groups of dwarf mongoose encounter each other. So they're all communicating with each other, but of course only the alpha male and female get to breed in a dwarf mongoose group. Sometimes the beta female might fall pregnant, and almost invariably her pups do not survive, often because they're killed by the alpha female to reduce the competition to her babies. So sometimes a breeding opportunity comes around in times of war. So if they encounter another group of dwarf mongoose, sometimes the young energetic singletons, whether they be male or female, might attempt to either desert and join the other group of dwarf mongoose in the hope of a better breeding potential, or they might actually sneak around and find a member of the opposite sex that has similar things on its mind, and they might mate in secret in order to keep the genetic line fresh. It's unusual though. It's generally something that only happens when dwarf mongoose come into conflict and when they've got youngsters of an eligible age. Are we all done now? Are we finished marking? Or are we still continuing on? Now, Anita, you want to know what the anal paste smells like. That's a very good question, because I know very well what hyena anal paste smells like, but I don't think I've ever gone up close enough to have a sniff of a dwarf mongoose anal pasting. And I'm afraid that today there would be absolutely no point to my going to try and smell that blade of grass, because I'm not able to smell anything at the moment. In fact, I've forgotten what a sense of smell is like, which is most devastating because I can't even taste happiness's amazing cooking. So unfortunately, I won't be able to smell it today, but I'll bear that question in mind, and next time I see, the things we do. The next time I see a dwarf mongoose burrow with some fresh anal paste around, I'll go and have a jolly good sniff, and I'll describe it to you. I know what a dwarf mongoose burrow smells like. It's got a sort of a musky scent to it, which I assume is a combination of their scat, because they do defecate outside the entrance to their burrows. But it might also be a combination of anal pasting as well. There's some serious stuff happening here with this dwarf mongoose family. Lots of bonding going on, some allo grooming, making sure everybody's nice and clean, reaffirming their bounds, reaffirming the connection. Look at that. I wonder if that's a scar on that little one's face, or if it maybe has a little bit of mange. I think it's actually a scar. I think they're freshly healed scars. Now, for those of you that have been watching for a while, as I know many of you have been, if you cast your mind back to Halloween, not this year, last year, oh goodness, it's 2017, Halloween of 2015, when Tebs was still here, we had a dwarf mongoose with a pure white face. He looked, and I remember it was Halloween distinctly because it looked as though it was wearing skull face paint. And often what happens, because I spoke to a friend of mine who is deeply involved with dwarf mongoose research, and apparently that's what happens when something damages a dwarf mongoose's skin quite badly. It can be a cut, it can be a skin disease. Often the fur grows back white. And I've only ever seen that once with that little dwarf mongoose with the white face. Lots of digging, lots of bonding, rubbing each other, rubbing their scent glands on each other, having a jolly good groom and also a jolly good sniff. Now, I've spoken about the big ferocious predators, and Danny, you want to know if dwarf mongoose ever catch birds. I've never seen it happen. Now, I have no doubt that if they were to, and in fact I know for certain that if they were to encounter a bird's nest, they absolutely would crack open the eggs, and watching them with an egg is an interesting experience, and I'll describe that to you in a moment. But I've never ever heard of them or seen them catching birds. I think if they came across an incapacitated small bird, something like a waxbill, for example, I do think that they would eat it. but I've never heard of them or seen them catching adult birds. Excuse me. And I've also never seen them raiding birds' nests deliberately. I've only ever seen them with an egg from a ground nesting bird. And when they get hold of eggs, of course they have to break them open. Oh, bye-bye. They have to break them open, and what they do to do that is they grab the egg between their front paws and they smash it repeatedly against the ground. And it's quite a fascinating process to watch. Now, those of you who've been watching for a while, I've told you all the story of Goose, the banded mongoose that a friend of mine had that he gave it to me to babysit for a little while. Now, Mongoose was a charming little creature. She attached herself at one point to my septum, so between my nostrils, by her teeth. She also attached herself to my friend Steph's eyelid by her teeth. So she was a very friendly little creature. And then she wanted to come and have a cuddle. So mongoose of any description do not make particularly good pets. But at one point we did give her an egg from our kitchen store to play with. And watching her try to, because a banded mongoose is slightly bigger than a dwarf mongoose. I think a chicken egg would be a little bit beyond the capacity of a dwarf mongoose. But for a banded mongoose, watching Goose try to figure out how to open up that egg was truly entertaining indeed. She'd attack your socks as well. You'd take your socks off after a long walk, which, as you can imagine, in summer, and they're not particularly pleasant smelling after walking for 5 or 6 hours. She'd attach herself to your sock and she would not let go. Taking your shoes off was an absolute nightmare, because once she'd finished with your sock, once she'd ravaged your sock, she'd then try and attach herself to your big toe. There to look after them, young pups. If they don't, which they don't seem to, because I think we probably, unless they're very small, we probably would have seen them. If they go foraging, if they find themselves too far away from this burrow by the end of the evening, they'll move to a different one. So they'll have a number of known nest sites. Nest site is not a good way of describing it. They'll have a number of different burrows that they will go into, different hiding holes that they'll spend the night in. So if they find themselves too far away from this one to get back safely, they'll just all pop into the next one. And then again, as evening falls, you'll find they go into the sort of frantic scent-marking frenzy that we've just seen over here. They'll go about doing that once again. We're going to continue on. In the meantime, let's go back to James, find out how his stroll through the bush is going.
Olinka. Everyone, Herbert has found further tracks here. There, can you see, Eggsy?
Yeah.
That's the obvious one. And then here's a much less obvious one. Can you see that one there? Yeah, that's very clear. Now, of course, I'm being completely facetious. I don't know what on earth. I nearly said, what the hell? I don't know what on earth Herbert's looking at here, but he's just got much better eyes than me. She is very, very close to the boundary. I suppose it doesn't really count if you then say it afterwards, don't you? If you stop yourself and then tell people what you were going to say, it doesn't really count. Good. Okay, so what I'm going to do is just give you a quick idea of where we've walked, and I need for that purpose a little piece of barish ground. Come over here, Egbert. Because we've walked quite a long way. Here we go. Here is the perfect palette. And I, of course, am the world's greatest artist. And so it will be very easy for me to convey to you where we have walked. Here is Djuma. Well, no, let's do this as the eastern side of Djuma, right? With Gari, with the pan here. So that's where we started. That's where the pan is there. Okay? And the final control is there, where there's bushes and treehouse dams here. So they found her. The 2 cubs were there yesterday, right? They came up towards the pan with her last night, where you all saw them, or a lot of you saw them. Then they came across Mvubu Road, which goes like that. They came across and into this block. Now, Mvubu Road has another road joining it called Gari Cut Line, and that turns up there like that and goes to the Buffelshoek Cut Line. And this here, where I'm pointing now, is the Buffelshoek Cut Line. Now, we have walked on the tracks pretty much all the way through this block. Okay, And then we lost them. Somewhere around here we lost the tracks. I say we, I don't mean that I had anything to do with spotting them. Herbert and James couldn't find any further tracks. So we then split up. James went down here, Herbert went that way, Eggsy and I went that way, and we crossed the Gari cut line, and here is the Mloamati drainage, where that fairyland I told you about is. We crossed here, went up onto the Buffelshoek cut line, around the drainage line, and back and met up with Herbert here. We then came back to this point where Herbie has just, that's where we're standing now, where Herbie has just found further tracks, still heading in that general direction. Now we're pretty close to the boundary, as I've just shown you, which means that we're fairly confident that she's either crossed Gari cut line into the drainage, but we did check the drainage, or maybe she's actually gone into Buffelshoek. Buffelshoek is part of her territory. That's the, in case you're wondering, you might be a new viewer, Buffelshoek is the reserve to the north of us. No fences that will stop animals from coming to and fro, but we can't go there, obviously. So her territory does cover the southern portions of Buffelshoek and in the northern portions of the property to the south of us. Anyway, that's just how it happens. John, I'm afraid I missed your question again. You've asked some good ones today. How long do leopards what? Oh, how long do they last on average? It really depends entirely, John, on the environmental conditions. So we've had rain, quite a lot of it of late. That will obliterate tracks very quickly indeed. Oh, you stuck. Egbert has managed to attach himself to a black monkey thorn. You're okay, are you? Yeah. Well done. Okay. John, if it's windy, then of course the tracks will be obliterated as well fairly quickly, but rain is really the thing that obliterates them. It's impossible to say on average how long they will last, but in these sorts of conditions, when the air is still, there's no moisture or there's no rain coming out of the sky, you'll find that they'll last probably for at least 48 hours, maybe even longer, can be 60 hours. I mean, that lion track I showed you earlier has been there, I'd say, the best part of 2 weeks. That was there after the last very heavy rain, and then it just solidified there. And that's because of the substrate that it was in. Anyway, we're going to do one last foray through here, and if we're very lucky, we'll find something. Let's do this while we're here. Now, while we're looking at this plant called the black monkey thorn, which is the plant that Egbert attached his shin to, he's luckily not bleeding, thankfully. This is called the black monkey thorn, and it's called the black monkey thorn because it has a what kind of a thorn, Egbert? A black thorn, exactly. Why it should be called a monkey thorn, I don't really know. Sherilyn, you're wondering how far we walk on average during a walk. Again, sometimes it can be less than a kilometre, less than a mile. That could be dangerous. That's a problem. Excuse me. We're okay. Sherilyn, today we've probably walked we've been walking very slowly on these tracks. I don't know how many miles. We've probably walked about 4 miles, not very far. It feels a lot further for Eggsy because, hang on, there was a spider here it is, because he's of course carrying the pack. There's a tiny little orb-web spider there that has set itself up on the black monkey thorn. And it's waiting very patiently for things like those biting flies or sweat bees to come past and stick themselves into its web, and then it will devour them. Isn't he cute? He's probably about 2 millimeters big. Oh, he's already got something in there. I cannot possibly see what it is. It's very small. It'll be a little fly, probably. He's wrapped it up in silk and is waiting for it to digest. And in case you're wondering what I mean by that, again, I have told the story, but I'm more than happy to tell it again. A spider doesn't digest its food inside its body. So unlike you, we eat our food, of course, and then our stomachs do the work of digestion. The venom of a spider is its digestive enzyme, so it injects the venom, which then liquidizes the inside of its prey, and then it drinks out a sort of milkshake, if you like, of nutrition, a sort of health shake from the chitinous abdomen of whatever it has happened to kill. Very nice. On we go, Egbert. There's a lot of black monkey thorn around here. Let us both be careful. We don't want a similar situation to occur as we just had. Right, Evia is still at Chitwa Dam. We're doing one last way up to the boundary, and then we're going to start heading towards home. So let's go and find out what's happening at the water.
So still a lot of activity from these hippo. Now a different part of hippo that's busy having a go at each other. The ones closer to us, closer to the dam wall, pushing each other and shoving each other around a bit. I wonder, I don't think this dam will allow more hippos to get into this. I wonder if this isn't actually two groups of hippo that, because of the drought and not having a lot of water sources with enough water to have the hippos in them, if the other group that split up from these ones, if they're not from another big dam that might be empty or something like that. That's what my best guess would be. I don't think one group would have just split up like that. And they look almost similarly numbered as well, just having a quick look. Is that a calf that's riding on its mum's back? So someone was asking about when males hippos fight, if they will bite out. So I can just hear a wolf girl. Sorry, I'm struggling with my ear this morning. But you are asking if they will bite off each other's tail, or if it's true. It's not impossible, I don't think, but yeah, it would be a good ploy for a male to bite off its tail, or the loser's tail, because then that male will never be able to fan out his dung again. So it would be a positive for the male winning, but yeah, I'm not sure if it does happen that often. I know zebras also do that. They bite off each other's tails every now and then. Yeah, let's have a look at those Egyptian geese again. That little family feeding away on the duckweed. Not a little family, that's a huge family. It sounds like Jamie has found a nice feathered friend, and a nighttime feathered friend with that. Let's head over to her.
A nighttime friend during the day. And I just commented to Rion saying that it seemed as though we only ever found the white-faced owls when it was raining and we had the roof on and we weren't able to see them properly, when lo and behold, there they are. And finally, I'm able to show some of our newer viewers the incredible upright, thin stance of a white-faced Scops owl. So there's two there. There's one on the right in the sort of normal position, although it seems to be fast asleep at the moment with its head tucked down and looking in the other direction. And then there is the second one that looks a little bit like Gandalf. I'm trying to think what it reminds me of. It reminds me of something. This, the Kung Fu Master. Yes, looks like. Yes, and a karate sensei. That's exactly what it looks like. Complete with the sort of the long moustache combination thing. I can just picture it. Don't make me laugh. I'll start to cough. Okay. So there we go, our white-faced owls. The incredible transformative ability of theirs to completely shapeshift and go from slightly squat, as I described it the last time we saw them, slightly squat, overworked university professors and academics, to this long, thin, austere-looking kung fu master. Oh, big yawn. I'm sorry, are we keeping you awake? There we go. There's the overworked, underpaid professor on the right and the kung fu master on the left. I love owls, especially little ones. They're so thoroughly entertaining. And those little tufts of ears. Oh, yes. Wink to you too, mister. Or madam. Little tufted ear-like protrusions sticking out from the tops of their heads. They're not ears, as we spoke about the last time we saw them. They are, in fact, just tufts of feathers. I don't know whether they play any role in terms of maybe perhaps helping with sensing, like whiskers might do, but the ear openings are much further below where you might think they are. So those tufted bits of feathers are not ears at all. Goodness gracious. Rhiannon's either flirting with you or me. Not quite sure who, but it's giving us a serious wink there. There's a slightly sadder looking one on the right. So a mating pair of white-faced scops owls. We're really very lucky that they've decided to spend as much time as they do on Djuma. Very, very close to Buffelshoek Dam. And we get to see them relatively regularly now. And then, of course, like most of our owls, that disc-shaped face that basically acts like a satellite dish and directs all kinds of stimuli into the center of the head. Extra light and sound as well, helping the owl to detect things when flying about in the dark. Now, I will play their call for you. It does sound a little bit like a croo sound, but I'll play their call for you, but not now. Not while we're sitting right next to them. I don't want to disturb them. You've got to be very careful with little territorial birds like these ones. You don't want to make it seem as though there is a bigger and a scarier owl in the area of the same species, because there's actually a chance that they will up and leave and not come back. So I don't want to do that here with them now. We whistle to the pearl-spotted owlets because we've practiced with them. We try not to make it sound too loud so we don't sound big and scary, like the biggest pearl-spotted owl they've ever seen or heard. But I'm going to be careful with the white-faced owl because I don't want to play their call and overwhelm them. So I will play it for you, just not right now. And Judy H, absolutely, yes. So originally there was just one overarching species called the white-faced owl. These are now, they've been divided into two distinct species, the northern and the southern, and these are the southern white-faced scops owls. So yes, absolutely, these are the southern ones. We don't get the northern white-faced scops owls in South Africa. Originally, the southern white-faced scops owls were just thought to be a subspecies of white-faced owls. They are now their own separate species, just in terms of genetic studies that have been done into them. Sorry, just listening to the Game Drive radio at the same time. You are truly intriguing looking. Those massive amber-coloured eyes and the beautiful, beautiful streaks down their chest. So completely distinct from the scops owls that we so often hear calling. Many of you will hear them calling on the Djuma Dam camera at night. That prr, prr. I know, is it FW that does an amazing scops owl impression? I think it is too. I think it's FW. We'll have to ask him. No, wait, was it FW or was it somebody else? Somebody does an amazing scops owl impression. But now I can't. Oh, you know who it is. It's not FW at all. Sorry, FW. It is Gert. I mean, maybe FW does an amazing Skopsaal impression. But I'm actually thinking of Gert, the cameraman, who does the white-faced owl impression. I mean, the Skopsaal impression. Right, you two. Good to see you still on Djuma. I hope you enjoy your daytime sleep. Well, that long, thin shape, of course, the owl does when it's alarmed. And it does one of two things. It does the long, thin, pulled-up shape, looking austere and like a kung fu master. And that it will do when it's trying to hide itself. So when it's trying to pretend to be... Although, I must say, we always, whenever we see these two, there's always one doing the pulled-up, sort of very thin, sucked-in type posture. And then there's always one looking a little bit squat, a little bit rounder. But, I mean, generally, that sucked-in posture is thought to be a way of sort of camouflaging, emulating sticks, and they also lean ever so slightly off-center, so they can kind of try to disguise themselves as part of the tree. But if a white-faced Skopsaal does feel really, really threatened, if it knows that it's been spotted, what it will actually do is it puffs itself up and makes itself look enormous and spreads out its wings. It's quite funny to watch. Maybe after we finished our sunrise safari, Google some of the different shapes that white-faced owls can adopt. It is thoroughly entertaining. Right, bye-bye, little owls. Thank you for keeping us company. I don't think it was the other way around. I don't think we kept them very good company. We shall leave you now. Hopefully, we'll be able to follow your endeavors in the next few weeks. Please stick around. Bye. Megan, you wanted to know how did I spot them? We're getting very good at spotting tiny little owls. I knew the first place I looked would have been their normal tree that they're always sitting in. And if I had found them there, then I would take absolutely no credit for spotting them, but they weren't there. They weren't in their normal tree, and in fact I didn't think we were going to find them at all. It was just pure luck. My eye happened to glance over and see something that was out of place. And if you think about it, I mean, apart from the 10 million leopard logs that I have seen, if you think about it, we do spend a good at least 6 hours a day, usually more, driving around looking at bushes. So when something doesn't look like a bush or a tree, it's slightly easier to spot. I'm going to go and check out and see what's happening at Vulture Dam, but it might just be a little bit of a gremlin hollow for the vehicle that I'm in. And while we do that, let's jump back on board with FW.
Welcome back. We are back on Djuma and we are checking Cheetah cutline at the moment, seeing if there's anything around. We had the same plan as Jamie to go to Vulture Dam, so yeah, let's pick another route and see if we can find something else. Yo, how nice was that time we spent at Chitwa Dam? Amazing interaction with the hippos. Nice Egyptian geese. Oh, it was lovely. Now, let's hope we find something else. I'm feeling like elephant. What do you think, Darby?
Sounds good.
Elephant would be nice. Nice big pachyderm. All that's showing itself at the moment is some flowers, some nice morning glories. That's a beautiful little flower, isn't it? It must be getting a tiny bit of sunlight coming through on this clouded morning that it's opened up like that. When it was raining heavier, maybe the clouds were a bit thicker, they were all closed, not showing themselves. Alright, let's keep moving. we're gonna keep searching, but let's go see what Uncle James is up to.
If he ever refers to me as Uncle James again, I shall have to put something in his bed. I was going to make a more physical threat, but given the fact that Evere is at least twice my size, I would say, twice my height, and, well, he's got bigger muscles than me, I don't think that would be wise. What we have here is very attractive grass while it's sort of still green, but it's almost inedible to animals, and it's called a three-awn. And it's called a three-awn Egbert because it has three awns, there we are, per seed. And you might just be able to make out, oh no, well, you'll have to take my word for it. Each of these spikes is actually three awns, and it's very bitter. Not very nice. That's why the animals don't like it, but it's very pretty at this time of the year. We've given up on Karula because we know where she's gone. Her tracks came directly in here, and as I said earlier, she does not. She's going towards the kill. She walks in one direction. She came straight down. The last track was just inside here. The boundary to Buffelshoek is between those two trees over there. She may have gone and stopped into the drainage line, but that's where Eggsy and I walked earlier. Didn't see anything there, and so I think she's gone into Buffelshoek, I'm afraid. Anyway, that is the story of things, and that's just the way it goes. I was really hoping to see her and her cubbies on foot today. Anyway, c'est la vie, as they say. Let's go up here and have a look at this tree. Ooh, and I just want to quickly show you this once more, just in case you've forgotten about it. I've done this once before, and it wasn't too long ago. I was on a walk with Brian. No, I was in vehicle with Brian, I think. No, on a walk. This is a wonderful, wonderful grass called Eragrostis gummiflua. Egbert, I'm going to teach you this. Are you able to let go of your camera with one hand? Touch there. Squeeze it. No, on the node. There we are. What do you feel?
Sticky.
It's sticky. And it's sticky, we think, to stop the ants getting up and stealing the seeds. So the ants come up to the nodes, they get stuck on the stickiness, and then they have to go home. I'll just try and show it to you. You look very closely at my fingers as I open them up. You can just see the little bit of that gummy glue there. It's quite cool. I want to taste it. There. I don't want to taste it ever again. It's very bitter. Now, what we have here is a quite interesting arrangement of 3 different tree species. In fact, 4 or 5 different tree species. This is very cool. This thing is called Lania schweinfurtii. Would you like to say that, Egbert? Lania schweinfurtii. That's right. That's the false marula. It's been destroyed by elephants. They've liked to eat it many times. Over here, we have a deeply ancient tree called a leadwood. And there it's so ancient that the bark is actually coming off it. That's really cool. That's what the woodpecker is to tap on. Then we've got a huge quarry bush. And this is a very unusually large quarry bush. They're normally not much more than 6 or 7 feet high. This one's at least double that. The very thick trunk. And obviously there's a patch of very fertile soil here. The leadwood is dead. The Lania schweinfurtii is still growing, as is the quarry. And then we've got some nice white berry bush here. Eggsy, are you feeling hungry?
No.
You walked very far today. You sure you don't want a white berry? They're rather good. They taste like sweet peas. Very nice. And then over here, there's another tree. It's the Papia capensis or jacket plum tree. All growing seemingly out of the same patch of soil, which I think is very interesting. Now, Eggsy, I've told people this before, but I know you and I are challenged in the same way. We're both not very large people, but we both also have no hair. No hair. And apparently your ancestors when they came travelling up from the Cape in their ox wagons, they thought or discovered that this is good for balding. So you put it under your hat, and it's supposed to make your hair grow back. Now, I don't know if it's just simply because I'm not of your ancestry that it doesn't work for me, but I think you should try some. I'm going to put some underneath Egbert's head there. There we go. And maybe when he gets back, he'll have a little patch of hair growing out at the front of his bald pate. All right, on we go. We're on our way back to breakfast now. Oh, Bradford, you're wondering about a baboon flower. I've seen one, actually, and I'm surprised I've only seen one. I saw it yesterday, just before we went off air. I'll find you one as we go slowly back home. We've left Herbie again. He's gone down into the drainage there just to have one last look, and we're just going to wind our way gently back. We do that. There was a really nice dragonfly here, a red skimmer. Jamie has got something interesting for you other than wax on, wax off.
Oh, Uncle James, I do wish I had something interesting, but it flew away. Most unfortunately, it was a black-bellied bustard, but it has disappeared off. I will continue to search for interesting things to keep you and Uncle James entertained. If it's any consolation, James is definitely the entertaining uncle. He's definitely the cool uncle. It's going to drive him mad. Half the fun, though. So no sign of our Queen Karula. That's what we've been doing all morning, is searching for her, with some wonderful things in between. Not a morning wasted, though, and if it were easy to find them each and every day, it would kind of be like going to a zoo, and it would be very, very boring indeed. It doesn't always work out the way that we had planned. Oh, it's a hyena, never mind. Old hyena track. We've got to work for the good times. And sometimes we've got to have the quiet mornings to make us appreciate how lucky we are when things do happen and when we do bump into sightings and we do find things. It would be so terribly boring if we knew where everything was. Now, speaking of the tricksy hyena that wandered along this road at some point last night, Eric, good morning to you and welcome to the Sunrise Safari. You say, speaking of hyena, it's been so long since we have last seen them. Where have they all gone? I know, Eric. I'm so sad about the disappearance of our hyena. They are on Manyeleti. They are denning in Manyeleti. Last I heard, it was around a place called Dixie Koppies, which we can see but not get to. So Manyeleti, for those of you that don't know, is the reserve that lies to the north of the property Buffelshoek, which is north of our traverse. They left. We don't know why they left. We think they left because the Nkuhumas decided to den here, and look, we were spoilt with 2 months worth of amazing sightings, with three months of amazing sightings with the Nkuhumas. But unfortunately, it seems to have resulted in the loss of our beloved hyenas. They do come back every now and again. I see you. I don't know why I'm ducking. Oh, yeah, it was a little female steermork and she was so close to the road. I don't know why I decided that hunching over the steering wheel was going to change anything. And off she goes. Well done, Rion, for catching her retreating bottom. So they do come around every now and again. We see our hyenas. There's something moving over there. Let's go find out what it is. Aha, Impala. I haven't seen a hyena in a really, really long time. Aha. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop so we can look at these Impala. And while I do that, I'm going to search for that owl call that I was going to play you. Hopefully my signal is strong enough, since silly Jamie left her device that has the bird app on it at home. Please don't disappear. I need you as something very pretty to look at. Hello, boys. Hello, boys. Here we go. Perfect. Right, while we watch them, let's see if we can get the call of the southern white-faced owl going. Excuse me, that is not the call of the southern white-faced owl. That is the call of a Wild Earth crew member afflicted by a cold. No, YouTube, don't do this to me. Oh. A little bit of a skirmish there between the young males. Haha. Here we go. We're getting there. That's a leopard. That's a scops owl. There, that. Ooh. That's still a scops owl. That is an unidentified thing. One more time. Hopefully. No. There. There you go. That actually is a really nice demonstration of your normal scops owl. That burp, and then the call of the white-faced owl. So there you go. Had to make a plan there because I didn't bring my bird app along with me, but it worked in the end. So there we go. Better put my phone back on aeroplane mode or else I'm going to be in trouble. There we go. Okie dokie, our Impala have moved off. I think it was the incredible call of the white-faced owl that sent them scurrying for their lives into the bushes. Let's go see what else we can find. It's a very pretty call. It's just reminded me. Sorry, I completely forgot about this clock. So my previous boss, we used to go to a reserve all the way up near a reserve called Mapungubwe, so right up to the sort of top Limpopo corner by Zimbabwe and Botswana. And it would be just the one guide and a group of guests that would all live in a house together, and we'd go and we'd do stuff there. And we decided that the old farmhouse needed some cheering up, and my then boss decided that what we really needed, what our lives needed, was a clock that plays bird calls every hour on the hour. And he got this clock. So each hour was a different bird, which makes sense. And I think, if I remember correctly, I have to stop the car for this memory because it's entertaining me so much. I think the top one was the guinea fowl. 12 was the guinea fowl. Kukuru, kukuru. Now it sounds charming, doesn't it? One was an orange-breasted bushshrike. I think 8 o'clock was orange-breasted bushshrike. White-faced owl was one of them on this particular clock, and I know that wherever Emma is, she'll be chuckling at the thought. So it sounds like a lovely idea, except in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of the night, life is very, very quiet, and when you've got calling when you're trying to sleep. But then it got even funnier because something got disconnected somewhere, and it started playing the wrong bird calls at the wrong times, but not even on the hour, just completely randomly. All of a sudden this clock would start to play these bird calls. And then to make matters even worse, the battery started to go flat. So instead of the normal, you'd get I've forgotten all about that stupid clock. And the batteries jammed, so we couldn't get this stupid thing to stop. Eventually we vanished it. It disappeared. Nobody will ever know where that clock went. And there you go. A fun story to end off our sunrise safari. I'm entertained at the memory of that silly, silly bird clock. Don't buy one. It's not as entertaining as it sounds. On that note, it is the end of our sunrise safari. Thank you, Rion. Well done with that red-crested korhaan, and thank you to all of you for joining us. We'll catch you on the sunset safari. Bye-bye, everybody.
Alrighty. Yeah, interesting morning this morning. Quiet on the cat side. We're all hoping to find some different cats, the spotted ones and those beautiful lions, but to no avail. It was very nice exploring Chitwa, but we had some good laughs at the dam there. Beautiful hippos fighting. Yeah, so I think a very lovely morning out in the bush. Folks, it's been lovely sharing the bush with you this morning. Darby, thanks for a lovely drive. Hope to see you all soon again. But for the meantime, let's head back over to Uncle James, who wants to say his goodbyes as well.
Now I am going to physically assault him now. I have to agree with Effie. It has been very pleasant showing you the bush, but I really rather hoped to show you a leopard on foot, which would have been very fun indeed. But we have seen some interesting flowers. We've had a great tracking experience with Herberto. He's just in front of us there. He's got the smell of breakfast in his nose. I certainly do too. Here is the baboon's tail. But you can see almost, there are definitely no flowers on them. And I'm looking around here, and there's a huge patch of baboon's tail, but none of them have got flowers. So I'm sorry about that. We'll keep looking for one. We have 2 minutes to see if we can't find a baboon's tail flower. Go away, fly. Right, on we go. I've just had the most random thought, everyone. So I suppose I should share it with you. As I failed to find you anything else in terms of big game. I had a dream last night about our second TV show, which is of course on Sunday night, 11 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, 6 o'clock in the morning Central African Time, and I had a dream that it didn't go very well, and it was like when you pitch up at school and you don't have your pants on, that sort of thing. I was about to go live and I realized I was wearing a grey t-shirt. Then I was attacked by a swarm of bees and I had to jump into a pool. This is all live, of course, and that was a bit of a disaster. And I'm reminded now why that is the case. Of course, the African honeybee all over Africa. And I've just remembered that my parents told me that the hive has set up residence in their house yesterday. So I'm glad that between the two of us we've cleared up why I had that rather ridiculous dream. Right, that's going to be it from us for today. Thank you, Egbert, for your sterling and very physically impressive work on camera today. Well done. Good job. And then we're going to say thank you to Herbert, who has tracked manfully and with enormous skill today. And mostly we're going to say thank you to you for your participation in the drive. Thank you very much. And a quick thanks to Louise and Kirsten in the final control. We will see you this afternoon at 4 o'clock. Bye-bye.